On the surface, it seems like an ordinary day in an idyllic community, a snapshot of harmony and peace. But beneath the surface, cracks in this picture-perfect setting are about to be exposed. Cracks caused not by any natural force, but by the weight of prejudice. This is the Williams family, a hardworking, resilient, and tight-knit group. Marcus, a software engineer, and Vanessa, a high school teacher, recently moved to this neighborhood after years of saving and sacrificing. For them, this pool day isn't just another summer outing. It's a celebration, a reward for years of perseverance, finally living in the community they once dreamed of. But little do they know, not everyone shares their sense of joy. Meet Karen. A longtime resident of the neighborhood, she prides herself on knowing everyone who belongs here. For Karen, today's peace is disrupted not by the sounds of children playing, but by the sight of the Williams family, a family she doesn't recognize. And that simple fact in her mind is cause for suspicion. Karen leans closer to her friend, whispering, her tone low but her words sharp. "Do you know them?" she asks, her gaze never leaving the family. Her friend shakes her head, uninterested. But Karen persists, muttering under her breath, "They don't look like they live here or belong here." The tension begins quietly, almost imperceptibly. Karen's scornful looks, her hushed whispers, and the way she watches the Williams family like a hawk surveying its prey. It's subtle but intentional. A single spark of judgment, threatening to ignite something much larger. Because for Karen, this isn't just a family enjoying their day. It's a challenge to the status quo she believes she must uphold. And soon she'll take matters into her own hands with consequences she never could have anticipated. Karen shifts uncomfortably in her chair, her sunglasses hiding the intensity of her gaze. She fidgets with her phone, scrolling aimlessly, but her focus is not on her screen. It's on the Williams family. Every laugh, every splash from the pool seems to agitate her further. The serenity of the day is, for her, an unwelcome noise. Karen's unease grows with each passing moment. The Williams family's presence feels to her like an anomaly in her perfectly curated world, a world where she believes she knows everyone and everything about this community. And if something feels out of place, Karen sees it as her duty to investigate. She leans closer to her friend seated beside her, lowering her voice but keeping her eyes locked on the family. "They don't look like they belong here," she whispers, her tone carrying a hint of accusation. Her friend, engrossed in her novel, barely glances up. "Maybe they're new," the friend offers dismissively before turning back to her book. But Karen isn't satisfied with that answer. The Williams family, meanwhile, remains blissfully unaware. Marcus lifts Maya out of the water and twirls her in the air, her delighted squeals drawing smiles from other pool goers. Vanessa waves to a passing neighbor, exchanging pleasantries as she adjusts her sun hat. Elijah races to the diving board, eager to try another daring jump. To any casual observer, this is just another family enjoying a day at the pool. But not to Karen. To her, their laughter is almost defiant. Their presence feels invasive, and that feeling gnaws at her, growing stronger with every moment they remain. Karen's growing frustration reaches a breaking point. She stands abruptly, brushing off her shorts, and strides toward the Williams family. Her polite smile is forced, her body language stiff, as she approaches Marcus and Vanessa, who are sitting near the edge of the pool. "Excuse me," she begins, her voice laced with a saccharine sweetness that doesn't quite mask her condescension. Marcus and Vanessa both look up, surprised but polite. "Yes," Vanessa replies, shielding her eyes from the sun. "I just wanted to make sure you're aware," Karen says, glancing between the two of them. "This pool is private for residents only." Marcus exchanges a quick look with Vanessa before answering calmly. "We're aware. We live here." Karen's smile falters for a moment, replaced by a flicker of disbelief. She tilts her head, her eyebrows raising slightly as if processing what she just heard. "Oh, really?" she says, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Where exactly?" "Just down the street," Marcus replies evenly, his voice calm but firm. "We moved in last month." Karen's eyes narrow slightly, but she quickly recovers, her smile returning, though it doesn't reach her eyes. "Ha," she says, almost to herself. "Funny, I thought I knew everyone in this neighborhood." Vanessa, sensing the tension, leans forward slightly. "It's a big neighborhood," she says, her tone polite but pointed. "Maybe we just haven't crossed paths yet." Karen hesitates, clearly caught off guard. She mutters something under her breath, something about keeping the neighborhood safe before retreating to her chair. But her suspicion hasn't waned. If anything, it's only deepened. Karen resumes her vigil, this time with more intensity. She watches the family closely, her phone now clutched tightly in her hand. Every movement the Williams family makes seems to feed her indignation. Elijah climbing onto the diving board. Reckless. Maya splashing in the shallow end. Disruptive. Vanessa and Marcus chatting by the poolside. Too relaxed, too comfortable for people who, in Karen's mind, don't belong. Karen's muttering grows louder, catching the attention of those nearby. Phrases like "who even are these people" and "they're probably not even residents" punctuate her quiet tirade. Her comments are subtle enough to avoid outright confrontation, but loud enough to plant seeds of doubt in those within earshot. Meanwhile, the Williams family begins to notice the stares. Vanessa exchanges a glance with Marcus, her smile faltering. She whispers to him, her voice barely audible over the sounds of the pool. "Do you feel like we're being watched?" "It's nothing," Marcus replies, though his eyes flicker toward Karen for a brief moment. He doesn't want to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. "Let's just enjoy our day." But Karen isn't done. Her suspicions have taken root, and now they're growing like weeds. She feels justified in her scrutiny, convinced she's protecting her community. She's already rehearsing what she'll say when she takes the next step. Because to Karen, there's only one way to handle this situation. The camera lingers on Karen as she taps her phone screen, her fingers trembling slightly with a mix of nervousness and determination. The faint sound of a dial tone echoes as the camera pans away, focusing once more on the Williams family, still unaware of what's coming next. The stage is set. Karen's suspicions have crossed a line and her actions are about to spark a chain of events that will shake this peaceful community to its core. To anyone watching, the Williams family looks like just another family enjoying a summer day. But behind their smiles is a story of determination, resilience, and an unshakable commitment to a better future. The screen fades into a flashback. We see Marcus in a small, dimly lit home office, working late into the night. Papers are scattered across the desk, a laptop glows faintly, and an empty coffee mug sits nearby. Vanessa enters quietly, carrying a sandwich and a fresh cup of coffee. She places them next to him and rubs his shoulder. "You've been at this all night," she says softly. Marcus looks up, exhaustion etched into his face but determination burning in his eyes. "I just need to finish this presentation," he replies. "If I can nail this pitch, the promotion's mine. And if the promotion's mine, we're one step closer to that house." The Williams family's journey to this neighborhood wasn't easy. Marcus spent years climbing the corporate ladder, facing microaggressions and underestimations at every step. Vanessa balanced teaching full-time with raising their children, often sacrificing her own needs to make sure her family had what they needed to thrive. The scene shifts to Vanessa in a classroom, surrounded by young students. She's grading papers late into the evening, a pile of ungraded assignments looming on her desk. A colleague stops by and remarks, "You're here late again, Vanessa. Don't you ever take a break?" "Not until my kids have the life they deserve," she replies, smiling but tired. The next scene shows Marcus and Vanessa touring homes. A real estate agent subtly steers them away from certain neighborhoods, offering vague reasons like those areas just don't have the best schools. Undeterred, the couple pushes forward, eventually finding their dream home in a community that feels perfect for now. For Marcus and Vanessa, this neighborhood symbolized progress, a tangible reward for years of hard work and sacrifice. It wasn't just about the house or the pool. It was about giving Elijah and Maya a future filled with opportunity, free from the limitations they had once known. But what they didn't realize was that while walls and fences can change, old prejudices often linger. The camera cuts back to Karen, sitting by the pool. Her phone rests on her lap, her gaze fixed on the Williams family. She's visibly agitated, muttering under her breath as she adjusts her sunglasses. Her thoughts begin to echo through the narration, revealing the inner workings of her mind. Who are these people? Why haven't I seen them before? This is supposed to be a safe neighborhood. Karen's discomfort isn't new. It's a product of years spent in an insulated bubble, shielded from the realities of an adverse world. Raised in a family where difference was met with suspicion, Karen grew up believing that change was a threat rather than an opportunity. The screen transitions into a flashback of Karen's childhood. She's sitting at a dinner table with her parents. Her father is reading a newspaper with a bold headline about integration in schools. "Mark my words," he says, shaking his head. "This is going to ruin everything." Karen, no older than 10, listens intently, absorbing every word. Karen's worldview was shaped by conversations like these subtle, but insidious lessons about who belonged and who didn't. As she grew older, these beliefs were rarely challenged. Her social circle remained homogeneous, her views unexamined. And now, as an adult, she clings to the illusion of control in her small corner of the world. The scene shifts back to the present. Karen leans toward her friend, her voice a low whisper, but filled with tension. "I'm just saying," Karen begins, glancing at the Williams family, "if they really live here, Why haven't we seen them before? People like that don't just blend in. People like what? Her friend asks, raising an eyebrow. You know, Karen says vaguely, waving her hand dismissively. They just don't fit the vibe of this neighborhood. The friend sighs, clearly uncomfortable, but doesn't push back. Karen takes this as validation, her conviction growing. Karen doesn't see herself as a racist. To her, she's just being vigilant, protecting her community from what she perceives as potential threats. But her vigilance is rooted in fear. Fear of change, fear of the unknown, and fear of losing the control she believes she has. The Williams family continues enjoying their day, unaware of Karen's scrutiny. On the other, Karen sits rigidly, her body language tense, her gaze unrelenting. Two lives, two perspectives, two worlds colliding in a single moment. For the Williams family, this pool day is a celebration of progress. For Karen, it's a disruption, a challenge to her carefully constructed reality. Karen, who tightens her grip on her phone, her mind racing as she debates her next move. She's no longer watching the family as people, but as a problem she believes she needs to solve. And with every passing moment, her decision feels more justified in her own mind. Little does she know, her actions are about to reveal not just her biases, but the strength and resilience of the family she so wrongly doubts. The peaceful hum of the pool area is interrupted by the distant sound of sirens. At first, it's faint, a low wail that seems far away. But as it grows louder, cutting through the laughter and splashes, heads begin to turn. The Williams family looks up, their smiles fading as confusion clouds their faces. Karen, on the other hand, sits upright, her posture rigid, her lips curling into a self-satisfied smirk. The sound of the approaching siren slices through the sunny tranquility like a jagged knife. For most at the pool, it's an unexpected disturbance. But for the Williams family, it carries an all-too-familiar weight, the sound of judgment, the sound of danger, the sound of being seen not as neighbors, but as outsiders. The police cruiser pulls up, its lights flashing. Two officers step out, their uniforms sharp, their faces serious. Karen quickly gathers her things and walks toward them, her steps purposeful, but laced with an air of faux vulnerability. She greets them with an exaggerated sigh of relief, clutching her chest as if she's narrowly escaped some unseen danger. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Karen begins, her voice trembling just enough to seem genuine. "I didn't know what else to do." They were acting suspicious. The officer nods, his expression stoic but attentive. "Who's acting suspicious?" he asks. "That family over there," Karen says, pointing toward the Williams family, who are now standing together by the pool. Her tone drops to a whisper, as though sharing some grave secret. "I don't think they live here. They've been making everyone uncomfortable." The second officer glances toward the family, his expression unreadable. Karen continues, her voice growing more dramatic. "I mean, it's just not safe anymore. I thought this was a private pool for residents only. I'm not sure what they're doing here, but I had to call. You understand, right?" The officers exchange a brief look. Karen's words have planted a seed of suspicion. And for the Williams family, that seed is about to grow into an ordeal they neither asked for nor deserve. The officers approach the Williams family, their demeanor professional but firm. Marcus steps forward instinctively, positioning himself protectively in front of his wife and children. His voice is calm but cautious as he greets them. "Good afternoon, officers. Is there a problem?" "We got a call about a possible trespassing situation," the first officer says, his tone neutral but probing. "Do you have any proof of residency for this pool?" Vanessa looks at Marcus, her face a mix of disbelief and frustration. She takes a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "We live here," she says firmly. "We moved in last month. Do we need to carry proof just to use our neighborhood pool?" The officers exchange another glance, their stance subtly shifting to one of authority. The second officer speaks, his tone sharper. "Ma'am, we're just trying to verify the situation. Can you tell us your address?" Marcus steps in, his voice steady but laced with quiet anger. "Our address is 245 Pine Ridge Drive. We're on the HOA list. I don't understand why this is even happening." But the officers aren't convinced yet. Their questions grow more pointed, their tone more aggressive. The Williams children cling to their mother, their eyes wide with fear. The pool area, once lively and bustling, is now silent. All eyes are on the unfolding scene. Vanessa's voice cracks as she speaks, her composure slipping. "This is humiliating," she whispers to Marcus. "In front of our kids, in front of everyone." Karen watches from a distance, her expression one of exaggerated concern. She whispers to another pool goer, her tone dripping with self-righteousness. "I just didn't feel safe, you know? It's better to be cautious these days." The person she's speaking to doesn't respond. their discomfort evident. But Karen continues, emboldened by her belief that she's in the right. The officers turn back toward Karen, who steps forward eagerly, ready to provide more evidence. I've never seen them here before, she says, her voice now louder for everyone to hear. And they just don't look like the kind of people who live here. As Karen's words hang in the air, a voice cuts through the tension. That's enough. All eyes turn toward the lifeguard, a young woman who has been quietly observing the entire scene from her post. She walks toward the officers, her expression resolute. They live here, the lifeguard says firmly. I've seen their whole membership card. They signed in at the front desk like everyone else. The officers pause, their demeanor shifting slightly. The lifeguard continues, her voice unwavering. And I've been watching the whole time. They haven't done anything wrong. The only person making people uncomfortable here is her. She gestures toward Karen, whose face turns pale. The murmurs among the pool-goers grow louder, a mix of shock and indignation. Another neighbor, emboldened by the lifeguard's words, steps forward. She's right, the neighbor says. I saw them sign in too. This whole thing is ridiculous. The officers turn back to the Williams family, their tone now apologetic. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, one of them says, though the words feel hollow. We were just following up on the call. Maybe next time you should ask more questions before showing up and treating us like criminals, Marcus replies, his voice calm but edged with frustration. We're just trying to enjoy a day at the pool with our kids. The officers nod awkwardly, retreating back toward their car. The tension begins to dissipate, but the damage is done. The Williams family stands together, their heads held high, but the sting of the moment is etched into their faces. Karen, now the center of judgment, tries to salvage the situation. She stammers, her words stumbling over one another. I was just trying to, You thought wrong, Vanessa says sharply, her voice cutting through Karen's excuses like a blade. Maybe next time, think before you act. As Karen shrinks back into the crowd, the Williams family gathers their belongings, their dignity intact despite the ordeal. The pool-goers begin to disperse, murmurs of disapproval directed not at the Williams family, but at Karen. The camera lingers on Marcus and Vanessa as they walk away, holding their children close. The narration returns, a somber yet hopeful tone. Moments like these are far too common where fear and prejudice collide, turning a simple day into a battle for dignity. But the Williams family, like so many others, refuses to be defined by the small minds of those who cannot see their worth. They rise, they endure, and they continue to stand tall, no matter how many sirens try to drown out their joy. As the Williams family prepares to leave, the murmurs among the pool-goers grow louder. What was once a quiet, passive crowd is now stirring with discontent. The lifeguard, still standing tall after defending the family, is soon joined by others who feel compelled to speak up. One by one, voices emerge from the silence, weaving a tapestry of support that begins to drown out Karen's feeble excuses. From the back of the crowd, a middle-aged woman steps forward, her face a mix of indignation and resolve. She's holding a towel draped over her arm, her flip-flops slapping against the pavement as she moves closer to the Williams family. Excuse me, she says, her voice firm and clear, cutting through the murmurs. I'm Susan, and I live in the house right across the street from them. Susan turns to the officers, her hands on her hips. They're my neighbors. They moved in last month, and they've been nothing but kind and respectful since the day they arrived. She shoots Karen a pointed look, her tone sharpening. This entire thing is ridiculous. You called the police on them for no reason. The crowd shifts uneasily, the weight of Susan's words beginning to settle. Karen, however, remains defiant, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. The lifeguard, still standing nearby, nods in agreement. She steps closer, addressing both the officers and the gathering crowd. I can confirm what Susan said. The lifeguard begins. I've seen them here before. They've signed in just like everyone else, and they've never caused any problems. Her gaze locks on Karen, unwavering. This isn't about them breaking any rules. This is about you making assumptions. The murmurs grow louder. More neighbors exchange glances, their expressions shifting from passive curiosity to active disapproval. Karen glances around nervously, her confidence beginning to crack under the weight of mounting opposition. Despite the overwhelming evidence against her, Karen refuses to back down. She takes a step forward, her voice shaking but still defensive. There must be some kind of misunderstanding, she insists, her words tumbling over each other. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. It's just they were being so confrontational. Marcus raises an eyebrow, his voice calm but firm. Confrontational? He echoes. We've done nothing but answer your questions and defend ourselves against your baseless accusations. Karen falters, her hands wringing nervously. But instead of retreating, she digs deeper, her tone growing sharper. "I didn't mean it like that," she stammers. "It's just that you don't exactly blend in here." The crowd gasps softly at her words. Karen realizes too late the implication of what she said, her face flushing with embarrassment. But Marcus doesn't let the moment pass. Marcus steps forward, his posture commanding but not aggressive. His voice carries the weight of years of frustration and the strength of someone who refuses to be silenced. "Let's cut to the chase," he says, his eyes locking onto Karen's. "Why do you think we don't belong here? Is it because of the color of our skin?" Karen stammers, her composure slipping further. "No, of course not," she says quickly, her voice rising. I was just concerned about safety." "Safety?" Marcus repeats, his tone incredulous. "From what? A family enjoying a day at the pool?" "I didn't mean it like that," Karen says weakly, but the conviction in her voice is gone. The crowd's murmurs grow louder, voices of dissent bubbling to the surface. Vanessa steps in, her voice steady and resolute. "You can dress it up however you want," she says, her gaze piercing. "But the truth is clear. You saw us and assumed we didn't belong. That's on you, not us." The tension in the air is almost palpable. The crowd, once passive observers, begins to take sides. One man, standing near the edge of the pool, shakes his head in disgust. "This is exactly what's wrong with people today," he mutters. "Judging others just because they look different." A young mother holding a toddler chimes in, her voice firm but empathetic. "I bring my kids here all the time," she says. "I've seen this family before, and they've always been polite and respectful. This is shameful." Karen, now visibly flustered, tries to respond but is drowned out by the growing chorus of voices. "Leave them alone." Someone shouts from the back. "This is their pool too," another voice adds. Karen turns to the officers, her face a mix of desperation and indignation. "Are you just going to let them gang up on me?" she pleads. "I was only trying to do the right thing." One of the officers sighs, his professionalism slipping into exasperation. "Ma'am," he says, his tone weary. "It's clear there's been no wrongdoing here. I suggest you drop this." With no support left to cling to, Karen's defenses crumble. She takes a step back, her face flushed with embarrassment and frustration. The crowd watches as she stumbles over her words, trying to salvage her dignity. I didn't mean," she begins. But her voice trails off as Marcus speaks again, his words cutting through the chaos like a knife. "You didn't mean what?" he asks, his tone sharp but measured. "To show your bias. To make my family feel unsafe in their own neighborhood?" Karen says nothing, her silence speaking volumes. The crowd, now firmly united in support of the Williams family, watches as she slowly gathers her belongings and walks away, her head down and her shoulders slumped. As Karen disappears from view, the attention shifts back to the Williams family. Susan places a reassuring hand on Vanessa's shoulder, while the lifeguard gives Marcus a small nod of solidarity. "Thank you," Marcus says, his voice sincere but weary. "We shouldn't have had to go through this, but your support means a lot." The narration returns, reflective and poignant. Moments like these lay bare the ugliness of prejudice, but they also reveal the strength of community and the power of standing together against injustice. The Williams family didn't back down, and neither did those who chose to stand by their side. The camera lingers on the family as they return to their spot by the pool, their heads held high. Around them, the neighborhood begins to feel a little more united, a little more just. The pool day continues, but it's one no one will soon forget. The officers, now visibly uncomfortable, turn back to Marcus and Vanessa. One of them clears his throat, breaking the silence. "Sir, Mom, if you have some form of ID or proof of residency, we can resolve this quickly." The officer says, his tone softer than before, but still carrying the weight of authority. Marcus exchanges a glance with Vanessa. With a resigned sigh, he pulls out his wallet and hands over his driver's license. Vanessa follows suit, retrieving a utility bill from her bag. She had packed it earlier, ironically, to verify their residency for another neighborhood requirement. "Here," Marcus says firmly, his voice steady despite the simmering frustration. "This should be all the proof you need." The first officer examines the documents, his brow furrowing slightly as he compares the address on the ID to the neighborhood records. After a moment, he nods. "This checks out," he says. "You do live here." The second officer steps forward, his expression one of mild embarrassment. "We appreciate your cooperation," he says, his tone conciliatory. It seems there's been a misunderstanding. But Marcus isn't ready to let the moment pass so easily. His voice, calm yet firm, cuts through the awkward apology. "A misunderstanding," he repeats. "Or someone's prejudice given a platform?" Karen, still standing off to the side, overhears the exchange. Her face turns red as the officers confirm the Williams family's residency. She steps forward, her voice shrill with defensiveness. Well, they didn't say that earlier. Karen snaps, pointing a trembling finger at the family. How was I supposed to know? The first officer turns to her, his tone growing more pointed. Ma'am, they've done nothing wrong. All their documentation checks out. Your assumptions don't justify this call. Assumptions? Karen scoffs, trying to regain control of the narrative. I was just looking out for the community. It's not my fault they didn't make it clear they live here. Her words, intended to shift the blame, only make things worse. The crowd, which had been murmuring in the background, grows louder. Susan steps forward again, her voice sharp. Are you serious? Susan says, disbelief evident in her tone. They shouldn't have to prove themselves to you or anyone else. This is their home. The lifeguard adds her voice to the growing backlash. Karen, you're the one who's been causing trouble, not them, she says. You called the police over nothing. Karen falters, her confidence visibly cracking as the weight of her actions begins to settle in. But the turning point is far from over. Amidst the chaos, a teenager standing near the pool's edge discreetly films the entire interaction on their phone. They capture Karen's confrontational demeanor, the Williams family's calm responses, and the moment the officers confirm their residency. As the video ends, the teen types a quick caption. Karen calls cops on black family for trespassing in their own neighborhood pool. Spoiler, they live there. Rasses Karen do better with a quick tap. The video is uploaded to social media. Within minutes, notifications start rolling in, likes, comments, and shares multiplying rapidly. The narration steps in, reflective and ominous. What began as a quiet afternoon by the pool was now on its way to becoming a viral spectacle. Karen's actions would soon backfire in a way she never anticipated. As the video circulates online, the pool goers become more vocal in real time. Another neighbor steps forward, shaking their head at Karen. You've embarrassed yourself in this whole community, they say. We moved here because we wanted to live in a diverse, welcoming place, not deal with people like you. Karen's defensiveness turns to panic. She looks around desperately, hoping for support, but finds none. Even the friend she had whispered to earlier has quietly slipped into the background, unwilling to be associated with the growing spectacle. The first officer, noticing the shift in dynamics, turns to Karen one last time. His tone is professional but firm. Mom, it's clear there's no issue here. I suggest you apologize to the family and let this matter go. Apologize, Karen sputters, her voice rising in disbelief. I don't owe them an apology. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. Her refusal to back down only fuels the crowd's frustration. Susan shakes her head in disgust. Protect the neighborhood from what? She asks, her voice cutting through the noise. A family enjoying the pool? You've embarrassed yourself, Karen? Just leave. Karen's eyes dart around the pool area, her panic growing as she realizes the extent of her isolation. The officers step back, signaling that their part in the ordeal is over. Marcus watches her carefully, his expression a mix of disappointment and quiet strength. Finally, Karen mutters under her breath, her words barely audible. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she says, her voice trembling. Vanessa steps forward, her voice calm but resolute. But it did, she says. And now you need to live with the consequences. As Karen slinks away, clutching her belongings, the Williams family takes a moment to collect themselves. Marcus kneels to reassure his children, who are still visibly shaken. The crowd begins to disperse, but the tension lingers in the air. Meanwhile, the video of the incident continues to spread online. Comments flood in, some expressing outrage, others sharing similar experiences. News outlets begin picking up the story, framing it as yet another example of racial bias in everyday life. The narration returns, somber but hopeful. For Karen, this was the beginning of her reckoning, a moment that would force her to confront the prejudice she had long ignored. For the Williams family, it was a painful reminder that even in spaces they've worked hard to earn, their belonging is questioned. But as the video spread, so did the conversations it sparked, shining a light on the biases that persist and the strength required to confront them. The screen fades to black, the sound of social media notifications pinging in the background, signaling the start of a much larger conversation. The video, uploaded mere hours after the incident, spreads like wildfire across social media platforms. It garners millions of views overnight, with the hashtags #RacistKaren, poolside profiling, and do better trending worldwide. News outlets from local stations to national networks begin reporting on the story, framing it as a stark example of racial bias in modern America. The narration returns, solemn and reflective. In today's interconnected world, actions have consequences far beyond the moment they occur. What Karen intended as a private assertion of her prejudice quickly became a public reckoning. Clips of anchors from various news programs play, their voices overlapping as they discuss the incident. A neighborhood pool in the suburbs has become the center of a racial profiling scandal. This video, showing a woman calling the police on a black family, has reignited conversations about bias in shared spaces. The woman, now identified as Karen Morgan, is facing widespread backlash online. As the coverage plays, screenshots of tweets and comments flash across the screen at Social Justice 123. Unbelievable. When will this stop? Let people live in peace. At Neighbors United, glad the community stood up for the family. Karen needs to reflect on her actions. At Stop Hate Now, this is why conversations about systemic racism are still so necessary. Karen sits stiffly in a conference room, her face pale as she listens to the head of the Homeowners Association. A small group of HOA members sits across from her, their expressions ranging from disappointment to outright disdain. Ms. Morgan, the HOA president begins, her voice steady but firm. Your actions at the pool have brought unwanted attention to our community. We pride ourselves on fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment, and your behavior directly contradicts those values. Karen shifts uncomfortably in her chair, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand, she says weakly. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. Protect it from what? Another member interjects, their tone sharp. A family that lives here. Your actions were not only inappropriate, but also harmful. We've received multiple complaints from other residents about the hostile environment you've created. The president leans forward, her tone turning colder. Consider this your official warning. Any further incidents like this will result in fines or the revocation of your pool access privileges. Karen's face flushes with humiliation as the weight of the reprimand sinks in. She nods silently, her usual bravado replaced by quiet defeat. The fallout doesn't stop at the HOA. As the video continues to gain traction, Karen's employer is alerted to the incident. The company, a mid-sized corporate firm, quickly issues a public statement to distance itself from her actions. The views and actions depicted in the viral video do not reflect the values of our company, the statement reads. We are committed to fostering diversity and inclusion in all aspects of our work and community engagement. The employee involved has been placed on immediate suspension pending further investigation. Karen receives the news via email. Sitting alone in her home office, she stares at the message, her heart sinking. The narration interjects, cold and unforgiving. Karen's actions had reached beyond her neighborhood, impacting her career and tarnishing her reputation. The ripple effects of her prejudice were far-reaching, touching every corner of her life. Cut to Karen on a Zoom call with HR, her face strained as she pleads her case. It was a misunderstanding, she insists. I didn't mean for it to escalate like this. The HR representative remains professional but detached. Regardless of intent, your actions have reflected poorly on the company. We need to take these allegations seriously. Back in her neighborhood, Karen begins to feel the weight of ostracism. On her morning walk, neighbors who once greeted her with polite smiles now avoid eye contact. A couple walking their dog crosses the street to avoid her, their whispers barely audible but unmistakable. That's her, one of them murmurs. The one from the video. At the grocery store, Karen overhears two women in the produce aisle discussing the incident. Can you believe someone could act like that? One says, shaking her head. It's disgusting. I heard she got suspended from her job, the other adds. Serves her right. Karen's expression hardens, but her shoulders slump as she hurries away, leaving her half-filled cart behind. Karen reaches out to her closest friends, hoping for some support, but their responses are lukewarm at best. A phone call to her friend, Marcy, ends with an awkward silence. I don't think I can be involved in this, Karen, Marcy says finally. People are talking, and I have my own reputation to think about. Marcy, you've known me for years, Karen protests. You know I'm not racist. Do I? Marcy responds, her tone hesitant. Because what you did says otherwise. The call ends abruptly, leaving Karen staring at her phone, the loneliness settling in like a heavy weight. For Karen, the consequences of her actions were swift and severe. What she had dismissed as a misunderstanding became a moment of reckoning, forcing her to confront the biases she had long ignored. But the damage was done, her reputation tarnished, her relationships fractured, and her sense of control irreparably shaken. The camera pans over Karen sitting alone in her living room, the glow of her computer screen illuminating her face as she scrolls through endless comments condemning her actions. She closes the laptop, burying her face in her hands. Karen had hoped to maintain her life as it was. The narration continues, but her refusal to take responsibility only deepened her isolation. The screen fades to black, leaving the sound of Karen's shallow breathing and the faint hum of a news broadcast discussing the incident. The Williams family sits together in their living room the evening after the incident. The children, still a bit shaken, play quietly in the corner, while Marcus and Vanessa talk softly at the kitchen table. The weight of the day's events lingers, but so does a sense of triumph. Vanessa looks at Marcus, her voice firm, despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "You know," she begins, "when we moved here, I thought the hardest part would be adjusting to the new community. I didn't think we'd have to fight to prove we belong." Marcus nods, his expression contemplative. "We shouldn't have to," he says. "But we've been fighting to belong our whole lives. This is just another battle, and we're still standing." Vanessa smiles faintly, reaching for his hand. "That's why we're here," she says. "Not just for us, but for the kids. They need to see that you don't back down when someone tries to push you out of your own space." The camera pans to the children, who have stopped playing and are now listening quietly. Their daughter, a thoughtful look on her face, speaks up. "Are we going back to the pool?" she asks hesitantly. "Of course we are," Vanessa says with quiet determination. "We didn't move here just to be tolerated. We moved here to belong." The narration chimes in, reflective yet hopeful. The Williams family knew that their presence in the neighborhood was more than just a home. It was a statement of resilience, of courage, and of hope for a future where they wouldn't need to prove their right to be anywhere. In the days following the incident, a surprising shift occurs in the neighborhood. Neighbors who had previously been distant or indifferent begin reaching out to the Williams family. Susan, the outspoken neighbor who defended them during the incident, decides to take action. "We need to show them that they're welcome here," Susan says during an impromptu meeting with a few other residents. "This isn't just their fight, it's ours too." The group decides to organize a community pool party, inviting all the residents to come together in solidarity with the Williams family. Flyers are distributed, and the event is promoted as a celebration of unity and diversity. The day of the party arrives. The pool area, once the scene of tension and division, is now alive with laughter and conversation. Neighbors bring food and decorations, children play together in the water, and the Williams family is greeted warmly by nearly everyone they meet. Vanessa, standing by the pool, looks around in awe. She turns to Susan, who's helping set up a table of snacks. "This is incredible," Vanessa says, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for doing this." Susan waves her off with a smile. "You don't need to thank me," she replies. "This is your home as much as anyone's, and it's about time everyone realized that." The camera focuses on the Williams children, laughing and splashing in the water, their earlier fear replaced by joy. The narration returns, underscoring the significance of the moment. What began as an act of exclusion transformed into an opportunity for connection. The community had a choice, to remain silent or to stand together. They chose unity. As the pool party continues, the scene shifts to a montage of smiling faces, neighbors chatting, and the Williams family enjoying the day without hesitation or fear. The narration grows reflective and powerful. Racism thrives in silence, in the quiet complicity of those who look away. But when people stand together, when they refuse to let prejudice go unchallenged, real change becomes possible. The screen shows clips of people of all backgrounds talking and laughing, a stark contrast to the tension from before. The narration continues, transitioning into a direct call to action. This isn't just one family's story, it's a call to all of us. If you witness racial profiling, don't stay silent. Speak up, support those who face injustice, and be the change this world so desperately needs. The screen fades to black, and white text appears, accompanied by a calm and inspiring instrumental track. To the Williams family, this was a moment of hardship, but also a reminder of their strength and the power of standing together. Their story is one of resilience, hope, and the unwavering belief in a better future. The final shot returns to the pool party, focusing on Marcus, Vanessa, and their children. They're surrounded by neighbors, their laughter and joy filling the air. The camera zooms out, capturing the pool as a symbol of unity and belonging. The video ends with one last message on the screen: stand against racism. Speak out. Together, we can create a world where everyone belongs. Over 65% of Black Americans have experienced racial profiling in their lifetime. It's not just an isolated incident, it's a reality faced by millions every day. What would you do in this situation? The voiceover speaks with a sincere, introspective cadence, encouraging viewers to not only reflect on the story they've just witnessed, but to engage with the broader issue of racial profiling and discrimination. Would you stand up for what's right? Would you speak out when you witness injustice? Or would you remain silent, like so many before? This is a question that each of us must answer in our own lives, every day. If you believe in justice, equality, and standing up against racial profiling, then make your voice heard. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel to support more stories that highlight these issues. Together, we can make a difference. Change begins with you.